Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at nouns and their grammatical properties. So what are nouns? We all hear definitions. We all hear a definition of a noun that is a person, place, or thing. And I think that is perfectly fine for this course. You'll see more rigorous definitions later, so there are some things I do want to add, but this is relatively uncomplicated, and having uncomplicated definitions is usually a good thing. So we have concrete nouns, and these are the person, places, or things that you're used to. So dogs, houses, a bag of coins, blah, blah, blah. We all know concrete nouns. Abstract nouns are maybe things that we haven't considered, something as a relationship, or happiness, or love, or content, or empathy. These abstract nouns are something you can't physically visualize as a thing. So as a relationship, you can't actually have a concrete relationship. It's just a concept that binds two people together in some manner. Or happiness. You could define happiness as a bunch of neurons activating in some sort of sequence, but really happiness we just think of as an abstract emotion. Okay, we also have pronouns such as I, you, them, they, he, she, it, him, her, so on and so forth. There are lots of different pronouns. In fact, we create a lot of pronouns in English too, especially recently. So we'll cover pronouns in detail a little bit later. Okay, but when we talk about nouns, we also have to talk about subjects and objects. So recently, I was part of teaching an introductory linguistics course that taught syntax and never taught anything about subjects and objects. And I was a little bit baffled because a lot of really basic things can be explained easily if you understand the notion of subjects and objects. So I alluded to them in my previous videos, but I never actually explained them. Okay, so subjects. What are subjects? Well, subjects are what the sentence is about or who the sentence is about. So in the sentence, Mary ate a watermelon, the sentence is about Mary. And the question is, well, what is she doing? Well, she's eating a watermelon, or she ate a watermelon. So Mary is the subject, and ate a watermelon, this entire thing, is known as a predicate. Okay, so the predicate consists of a verb, and if there are objects, it consists of the objects as well. So, the watermelon, our second noun phrase here, is the object of the sentence. So, if Mary ate something. What is that something? That something is the object. So what I like to do when I see these verbs, I like to think, well, ate. Well, one way we can paraphrase the sentence is someone ate something. So the person doing the eating is going to be our subject, and the thing being eaten is going to be our object. Okay, so that's subject-object. What about James sent a letter to Mary? Well, James is what the sentence is about. That's the subject. The predicate, which I will erase after I finish writing, is what James did. So James sent a letter to Mary. So that's our predicate. But we're really interested in the objects. And this one has two objects. It has a direct object and an indirect object. Okay, so what is being sent? Well, a letter is being sent. So this is the direct object. And to Mary, so this is a prepositional phrase. But we could paraphrase this as James sent Mary a letter. Okay, and this is the indirect object. So what I mean is, the direct object of sent is the thing being sent, and the direct object is being sent to the indirect object. You only ever have to distinguish between direct and indirect objects when you have these ditransitive verbs. Okay, so James is the sender, which is the subject. A letter is the thing being sent, which is the direct object, and to Mary is the person that the letter is being sent to, which is the indirect object. Okay. What about the sentence, I sleep at night? Well, what's the sentence about? It's about I. It's about me. So I'm the one doing the sleeping. Okay, we saw this example before. What is at night? So at night isn't someone or something or to somewhere. It's just talking about when I'm sleeping. So really, this is just a modifier. So this isn't a direct object. This is just a modifier or adjunct. Okay, so typically our objects are noun phrases, or they can be paraphrased as noun phrases. Sometimes they're full complements, but usually we'll just talk about them in terms of noun phrases or these indirect to-Mary prepositional phrases. Okay, so those are subjects and objects, a very important concept which will help you with tree drawing a little bit later in the course. Okay, but now let's take a look at the properties of these nouns. Okay, properties of these nouns. Well, nouns carry number, so singular or plural. In English, we have cat and cats. That is a singular cat, or plural cats. We have markers on our nouns that tell us whether there's one or many. Let's take a look at saliba. So saliba does too. So my child, natugu, or my child, or my children, plural, natugu wow. So in this case, this is kind of like our S, right? It's just a plural S, except it looks a little bit different. And it attaches after the possessor or the genitive my. But it still has the same function as English. Okay, so its attachment is different. It's not directly after the noun, but it still attaches to this noun determiner mix. Okay, so that's number. It can also do gender, class. So here's Italian. I talked about French a little bit in the verb video, but Italian. So we have il libro, which is the book. The book is masculine. Okay, so all of these nouns in Italian have gender, whether they're masculine or feminine, or they may have neutral, I'm not entirely sure. But when we pick our article here, so our the in this case, it also has to match the gender of the noun. So if book is masculine, then we better pick il as our masculine definite article. For la casa, casa is house, it's feminine, so we expect our determiner again to be feminine as well. Okay, they have to match, otherwise it's ungrammatical. So nouns can host gender and class. We do not have this in English, but there are many languages that do. In fact, it's almost puzzling why English doesn't have these things when all of our closely related languages do. Okay, so number and gender are one thing. The third big thing, which we'll come back to later, is case. Okay, so subjects, objects, and possession have different case. Subjects have something called nominative case. Objects have something called accusative case, and possession has something called genitive case. I like to memorize it as two little words. One is sop, and one is neg. And I always write them like this. And this tells me that the subject is nominative, the object is accusative, and possession is genitive. So you do have to remember the words, but at the beginning it can be a little bit confusing which of these parts matches up with these bigger words. But neg sop or sop neg will take you a long way. So let's kind of go over these examples. Well, let's split into masculine and feminine. So a masculine nominative subject we have is he. For instance, he ran. So we can't say him ran in the subject position. When we have a subject, we always have to say he. So this is our nominative he, and same with feminine is she. Accusative would be him or her. So he loves him, he loves her, she loves him, she loves her. Okay, we can't say her loves she or her loves he, because if we say her loves he, we're saying that the accusative is the subject, but that's not right. The nominative has to be a subject. And of course our possession, his, her, so his book, her book. Before a noun, when we talk about possession, we do have to use his or her, so these are the genitive. Okay, let's just do some example exercises to see what goes wrong in these sentences. So he loves her. This is good, right? Yeah, so we have a nominative subject, and that's okay. And then we have an accusative object, and that's okay. So this is grammatical. What about his loves she? Oh, this is bad, right? His loves she. No, we don't like this. This is really bad English. Why? Okay, so this is a subject, and this is the object. So our subject has to be nominative, but this is genitive. So we don't want genitives as our subjects. What about she? His loves she. Well, she is an object, so we want it to be the accusative her, but instead we have the nominative here, and that's bad. So no, this sentence is ungrammatical. What about her loves him shoes? Oh my god, this is bad too, right? Okay, so we have, this is one of those weird cases. So we have a subject here. We have a subject, and him shoes is the object, but this whole thing is the object, right? What matters with this pronoun is the fact that it is the possessor. So we want to say his shoes. So this is the possessive, which means that for the possessive, we want a genitive, or a genitive, yeah. But instead of a genitive, we have him, which is an accusative. And we don't want that there, so that's not good. If it was just her loves him, it'd be fine, because the whole object would be accusative. But in this case, the possessive here is accusative when it should be genitive, so that's bad. And her loves him, well, the subject has to be nominative, but instead we're given the accusative. So that is bad. So this is also an ungrammatical sentence. So hopefully, with these three examples, you can kind of see what I mean by nominative, accusative, and genitive, and have some understanding of, hey, why are these sentences ungrammatical? Why are these the bad pronouns? And this is why. So in 7, subject, we want a nominative, but instead we get an accusative. That's why it's bad. Okay. So that's another thing on nouns. In English, we always see these cases as just, wherever they are in the sentence, typically, that's where they go. So for instance, we say the dog ran, or he jumped on the dog. When we say the dog, there's no case on that. Our case only really appears on pronouns. So what about in Latin? Well, here we have sailor.nom, girl.ac loves. So nominative and accusative are part of the words. And because these cases are part of the words, we can switch them around. We can say girl accusative, sailor nominative, loves, and we can switch the word order, and we still get the same meaning. The sailor loves the girl. And this is because the case is part of the words. So because the case is part of the words, when you hear the word, you know whether it's the subject or you know whether it's the object of the sentence. Therefore, if you switch them around, it doesn't inhibit your understanding of the sentence. So that's cool. In some of these languages, word order is really flexible. Okay, and the reason you might change word order in here, so why might you say 8 instead of 9? Well, maybe you want to put emphasis on something. Maybe you want the first word of the sentence to be the most important part. So you're talking about the sailor. Oh, it's the sailor who loves the girl. You'd say something like 8. But if you want to say the sailor loves the girl, then maybe you'd say something like 9. Again, this is just speculation, but it's a possibility. Okay, so word order is really flexible in these cases. Okay, another thing is definiteness, or some people will say definiteness. We don't talk about those people. I'm just kidding. Okay, so Swedish, the mouse. So we have another word for the. Yeah, we just say the mouse. We attach it to the noun. It's just a word by word. It goes with the noun, but it's not part of the noun. In Swedish, it's part of the noun. So instead of saying the mouse, they just take the word for mouse and they attach a definitive article, the, as morphology to the end of the word. So musen, that's the mouse. Now, in some cases, such as if you have an adjective, they do include the word for the as well, but they also include it on the noun. So there is agreement here as well. So for instance, you don't want a word for you don't want to say a hungry mouse the. You don't want that. That's not good. So there is agreement in these cases. I'm not sure if this the is optional in Swedish. In some languages, it would just be completely optional in this case because there is morphology on the noun that signals it's already definite. But I'm not quite 100% sure if that's true or not for Swedish. Okay. So let's talk about all these other types of words that go with nouns called determiners. So the ones I've really focused on are things like articles like the, and an, but we also have to talk about demonstratives and other types. So demonstratives are words like these, those, this, or that. So these come right before nouns in English. So the dog, a dog, an elephant. These dogs, those dogs, this dog, that dog. We also have WH words like what dog or which dog. We also have some quantifiers as well. So some dogs, most dogs, many dogs, all dogs, any dogs, few dogs, at least 3 dogs, at most 4 dogs. So we'll classify these as determiners for now too. Similarly, we have the possessive. So we did look at his, her, and there are other words like my or our or Tim's or John's, so you can use names here as well. And then we also have the pronouns such as we, us, or they. Now, if you remember from the original syntax series, we use noun phrases. But it turns out that noun phrases are actually determiner phrases. We're not going to make that jump right now, but we will make that jump about 6 or 7 videos in the future, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's everything that are on nouns, at least the big parts cross-linguistically. We'll take a look at a few data sets eventually that look at these different properties. But next time we're going to jump into adjectives, adverbs, and prepositions, because those are also major word classes. So if you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below, and I'll answer them as quickly as I can.